My flight attendant announced, "Sir, you'll need to give up your seat. We overbooked. I had a confirmed first-class ticket." She insisted. I asked for the passenger manifest and her supervisor. Turns out, she was bumping me for her boyfriend. That was her last flight with that airline. "Excuse me, sir. I need you to gather your belongings." I looked up from my laptop to find a flight attendant standing over me, her name tag reading Jennifer in crisp block letters, her smile as artificial as the recycled air circulating through the cabin. "I'm sorry," I said. "We have an overbooking situation. You'll need to take a later flight." I was already buckled into seat 2A, first class, window seat, the seat I'd reserved 3 weeks ago for $2,147, the seat I'd checked into online at exactly 6 a.m. that morning, the seat that was, according to every confirmation email, boarding pass, and receipt I had, definitively mine. "I have a confirmed ticket," I said. "Seat 2A. I understand, sir, but we need this seat." Her voice had that practiced airline tone, apologetic but immovable, like she was reading from a script she'd delivered 100 times before. I pulled out my phone, opened my email, showed her the boarding pass on my screen. "Confirmed reservation, paid in full. I checked in this morning." "Yes, but sometimes these situations happen, not to confirmed first-class passengers." I kept my voice level, calm. "Overbooking affects standby passengers, economy passengers who volunteer, not people who paid for premium seats weeks in advance." Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Sir, you need to deplane. Now." The cabin had gone quiet. The businessman across the aisle in 2C had lowered his Wall Street Journal. The couple in 1A and 1B had stopped their conversation. Even the flight attendant in the galley had paused her pre-flight checks to watch. "I'd like to speak to your supervisor," I said. "That won't be necessary." "It absolutely is. Because I'm not moving until someone explains why a confirmed paid passenger is being removed from a flight." Jennifer's smile vanished completely. "Sir, if you don't comply voluntarily, I'll have no choice but to call security and have you removed." "Then call security." I settled back into my seat. "And call your supervisor. I'll wait right here." I'd been flying for work for 15 years. Commercial litigation attorney, specializing in aviation law and passenger rights cases. I'd argued cases before the Department of Transportation. I'd negotiated settlements with every major airline in North America. I'd written 3 published papers on consumer protection in the airline industry, which meant I knew exactly what Jennifer was trying to do, and I knew it was completely, utterly, illegally wrong. Airlines overbook. That's standard practice. They sell more tickets than seats because statistically, a certain percentage of passengers don't show up. When everyone does show up, they offer compensation to volunteers who'll take a later flight. Vouchers, upgrades on future flights, sometimes cash, but they don't forcibly remove confirmed passengers from premium cabins. Not without cause, not without compensation, and definitely not without following very specific DOT regulations that Jennifer was currently violating. I'd boarded United Flight 2847 from Seattle to Chicago at 2:17 p.m. The plane was a Boeing 737-900, configured with 16 first-class seats, 30 premium economy, and 112 standard economy seats. First class was full. I'd noticed while boarding, every seat occupied except 2B, the middle seat next to me, still empty. I watched Jennifer walk to the front of the cabin, saw her pick up the phone, make a call. Her body language was tense, defensive. The businessman in 2C leaned toward me. "You really not going to move, would you?" I asked. "If you'd paid $2,000 for a seat and someone tried to steal it?" "Hell no," he grinned. "This is going to be interesting." 2 minutes and 37 seconds later, I was counting, a woman appeared at the front of the cabin, mid-50s. Gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, navy blue uniform with 4 stripes on the shoulders, senior supervisor, if I had to guess. "I'm Sandra, the in-flight supervisor," she said, approaching my row. "What seems to be the problem?" Jennifer jumped in before I could speak. "This passenger is refusing to deplane after being informed of an overbooking situation." Sandra looked at me, professional, assessing. "Sir, may I see your ticket?" I handed her my phone. She looked at the boarding pass, the confirmation number, the receipt showing the full transaction history from 3 weeks ago. Her expression shifted, subtle, but there, confusion turning to concern. "This is a confirmed booking," she said slowly. "I know," Jennifer said quickly, "but we have a situation." "What situation?" Sandra's voice went sharp. "First class isn't overbooked. I checked the manifest this morning before we started boarding." Jennifer's face flushed red. "There was a last-minute issue." "What issue, specifically?" Silence. I leaned forward slightly. "I'd like to see the passenger manifest. I want to know who's taking my seat." "That's confidential," Jennifer started. "No, it's not," Sandra cut her off. The sharpness in her voice had hardened into steel. "Not when it involves the involuntary removal of a confirmed passenger. Mr. She glanced at my boarding pass. "Mr. Patterson has every right to understand why he's being asked to deplane." Sandra pulled out a tablet from her shoulder bag, unlocked it, pulled up what looked like a passenger list, scrolled. Her face went from concern to absolutely furious in approximately 3 seconds. "Jennifer," her voice could have frozen lava. "Galley. Now." They walked to the front of the cabin. The galley curtain was partially open. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could see Sandra's body language, rigid posture, sharp, pointing gestures, the kind of barely controlled anger that comes from someone who's just discovered a massive violation of protocol. Jennifer kept shaking her head, making gestures that looked like excuses, pleading. Sandra wasn't having it. The businessman in 2C muttered, "Oh, she's in trouble." "Yep," I agreed. The woman in 1B turned around in her seat. "What do you think happened?" "If I had to guess." I kept my voice low. Jennifer tried to add someone to the manifest who shouldn't be there. Someone in standby or someone she knows personally. And the only way to make room was to bump a confirmed passenger. Can they do that? No, not legally. Not without compensation and voluntary agreement, which is why I'm still sitting here. Sandra returned, alone. Jennifer was nowhere in sight. "Mr. Patterson," Sandra said. Her professional mask was back, but I could see the anger still simmering underneath. "I sincerely apologize. There is no overbooking situation. You are confirmed in seat 2A. Please remain seated and prepare for departure." "I appreciate that," I said. "But I'd still like to know what just happened." Sandra took a breath, choosing her words carefully. "That's an internal personnel matter. She tried to remove me from my confirmed seat with no valid reason," I interrupted. "Not only did she violate DOT regulations regarding involuntary denied boarding, she also threatened me with security when I exercised my right to question the legitimacy of her request. I think I deserve to know why." Sandra closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, she looked tired. "There's a passenger in standby. Jennifer added him to the manifest manually, without authorization from ground services or supervisory approval." "Who is he?" "Mr. Patterson. I'm an aviation attorney. I specialize in passenger rights cases. I've litigated against this airline before." I kept my voice calm, factual. "If I file a formal complaint with the DOT, which I'm strongly considering, they're going to ask me these questions. You can tell me now, or you can tell them in a deposition." Sandra's shoulders sagged slightly. Her boyfriend. She was attempting to upgrade him from economy standby to first class without proper authorization. The cabin erupted, not loud. First-class passengers are generally too refined for shouting, but the whispers were immediate and vicious. "Are you kidding me? She tried to kick him off for her boyfriend? That's fraud. That's theft." The businessman in 2C let out a low whistle. "Damn, she really picked the wrong passenger to screw over." Sandra held up a hand. "I understand your frustration, Mr. Patterson, and I assure you, this will be addressed immediately and comprehensively." "How?" I asked. Jennifer appeared from the galley. She was avoiding eye contact with everyone. Her face was splotchy, like she'd been crying. Sandra waved her over. "Jennifer, you need to deplane." "What?" Jennifer's voice cracked. "You're being removed from this flight, effective immediately." "You can't do that." "I absolutely can. You attempted to involuntarily deny boarding to a confirmed passenger for personal gain. You violated company policy, DOT regulations, and basic ethical standards. You're done." "Sandra, please, deplane, now. Human Resources will contact you when we land in Chicago. I'll lose my job. You should have thought of that before you committed fraud." Sandra's voice was ice. "Now get your belongings and leave this aircraft." Jennifer's face crumbled. She grabbed her jacket from the overhead bin. Her hands were shaking. She walked past me without looking, without speaking. The cabin door was still open. She disappeared through it. The jetway, gone. Sandra turned to address the entire first-class cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize deeply for this delay and for any distress this situation may have caused. This behavior is not representative of our airline's values or standards. We'll be departing shortly." She looked back at me. "Mr. Patterson, again, my sincerest apologies. Your drinks today are complimentary, all of them, and I'll be filing a formal incident report that will be available to you should you choose to pursue any further action. I appreciate that. Can I ask what area of aviation law you practice? Passenger rights? Consumer protection? Regulatory compliance?" Her eyes widened slightly. Of course you do. Which is why I knew to ask for the manifest, why I knew she was lying about the overbooking, and why I'll absolutely be following up with corporate regarding this incident." She nodded slowly. "I understand completely. For what it's worth, this kind of behavior is not tolerated. Jennifer won't be flying with us again, or with any other airline, once this hits her employment record." "Good." The gate agent appeared at the door, had a brief, hushed conversation with Sandra. Both of them glanced at me. Sandra returned. "Mr. Patterson, our gate supervisor would like to speak with you after landing. He's flagging your ticket for additional compensation. Whatever you think is fair." "That's not necessary." "It absolutely is. You were threatened, intimidated, and nearly defrauded. The airline will make this right." I nodded. "All right." The rest of first class was staring at me now. The woman in 1B smiled. "That was incredibly impressive." The businessman in 2C extended his hand across the aisle. "Mark Chen, corporate attorney. That was the most beautiful display of knowing your rights I've ever seen." I shook his hand. "David Patterson, thanks. Aviation law, huh? 15 years. She really couldn't have picked a worse target." No, she really couldn't have. The cabin door sealed shut at 2:51 p.m., 34 minutes after I'd first boarded, 29 minutes after Jennifer had first tried to remove me. Sandra made one more pass through the cabin, confirming everyone was seated and ready. She stopped at my row. "Mr. Patterson, truly, thank you for handling that so calmly. A lot of passengers would have escalated, would have made it worse." "I didn't need to escalate," I said. "I just needed to ask the right questions." She smiled slightly. "Well, you certainly did that." The plane pushed back from from the gate at 2:54 p.m. As we taxied toward the runway, the woman in 1B turned around again. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How did you know she was lying? About the overbooking?" "Several things," I said. "First, airlines almost never overbook first class. The margins are too high, and the rebooking compensation costs are astronomical. Second, if there really was an overbooking situation, she would have started with volunteers, offered vouchers. She went straight to demands, which is a red flag. Third, her body language was wrong. She was defensive, not apologetic. And fourth, I gestured to the empty seat beside me. Seat 2B is still empty. If we were actually overbooked, every seat would be full." Mark Chen laughed. "Jesus, she really didn't think this through." "No," I agreed. "She didn't." The flight to Chicago took 3 hours and 42 minutes. Sandra personally served me drinks, apologized 3 more times, gave me her direct supervisor's contact information. Mark and I talked shop. He was in mergers and acquisitions. We exchanged business cards, talked about a potential case his firm was working on that might need aviation expertise. The woman in 1B, her name was Patricia, she was a college professor, asked me about passenger rights, about what people should know. I gave her a 15-minute crash course on DOT regulations. When we landed at O'Hare at 5:36 p.m. Chicago time, Sandra met me at the gate. With her was a man in a dark suit, early 40s, carrying a tablet. "Mr. Patterson, this is Robert Vega, our station manager for Chicago operations." Robert extended his hand. "Mr. Patterson, I've been briefed on what happened on flight 2847. I want to personally apologize on behalf of United Airlines. I appreciate that. I've flagged your ticket for immediate compensation. We're offering you a full refund of your ticket price, $2,147, plus an additional $5,000 in travel vouchers, plus automatic upgrade to global services status for the next 2 years. I did the math. $7,000 in value, plus the status upgrade, which would save me thousands more in future ticket costs and give me access to unlimited complimentary upgrades. That's generous," I said. "It's fair," Robert corrected. "You were subjected to attempted fraud by our employee. You were threatened. You were put in a position where you had to defend your legal right to a seat you'd paid for. That's unacceptable. What's going to happen to Jennifer?" Robert's expression hardened. "She's been terminated, effective immediately. Security escorted her from the airport 30 minutes ago. Additionally, we'll be reporting the incident to the FAA, as her actions violated multiple regulations. She'll likely face fines and will be flagged in the industry database, making it extremely difficult for her to find work with any other airline." "And her boyfriend, the passenger she attempted to illegally upgrade? He's been removed from our frequent flyer program and banned from booking standby travel. He claims he had no knowledge of what Jennifer was doing, and we don't have evidence to suggest otherwise, so we're not pursuing criminal charges against him, but he's lost all privileges." I nodded. "That seems appropriate." Robert pulled out a tablet. "I need you to sign some documentation, confirmation that you're accepting the compensation, and a waiver. I'm not signing any waiver that prevents me from filing a DOT complaint or pursuing legal action." He smiled slightly. "I didn't think you would. That's not what this is. This just confirms that you received the compensation and that we've explained the disciplinary actions taken. You retain all rights to file complaints or pursue any legal remedies you see fit." I read the document carefully. He was telling the truth. I signed. Robert shook my hand again. "Mr. Patterson, I hope this incident doesn't color your perception of our airline. What Jennifer did was an aberration. We have thousands of flight attendants who would never even consider something like this." "I understand," I said, "and I appreciate how quickly and comprehensively this was handled. If you need anything at all, my direct contact information is on that document. Don't hesitate." 3 days later, I filed a formal complaint with the Department of Transportation, not because I wanted more compensation, but because incidents like this need to be on record. The DOT took it seriously, opened an investigation, found multiple violations, not just by Jennifer, but by the airline's boarding procedures that had allowed her to manually override the manifest without supervisor approval. United was fined $50,000 and required to implement new safeguards. 2 weeks after that, I got a call from Mark Chen, the businessman from Seat 2C. "David, I have a client who needs an aviation attorney. They were bumped from a flight and the airline is refusing to pay the required compensation. Interested?" "Absolutely." That case settled for $35,000. Mark referred 2 more clients over the next month. 1 month after the incident, I got a letter from Jennifer, handwritten. "Mr. Patterson, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I don't deserve your time or attention, but I need to say this. What I did was wrong, illegal, unethical. I endangered my career, betrayed my employer's trust, and attempted to defraud you of something you'd paid for. There's no excuse. I lost my job. I lost my career. I've been fined by the FAA. No airline will hire me. My boyfriend broke up with me. Turns out he wasn't worth losing everything for. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm writing to say thank you. Thank you for not physically escalating. Thank you for staying calm. Thank you for forcing the truth to come out in a way that protected other passengers from someone like me. I was a good flight attendant once. I loved my job, but I let entitlement and selfishness corrupt that. You didn't just protect protect yourself. You protected everyone who would have flown with me in the future. I hope you never have to deal with someone like me again. Jennifer. I read the letter 3 times, thought about responding, decided against it, filed it away. 6 months after Flight 2847, I was back at SeaTac, boarding another United flight to Chicago. Different plane, different crew, but I was in seat 2A again. First class, window seat. A flight attendant, older woman, maybe late 50s, name tag reading Michelle, stopped at my row as I was settling in. Mr. Patterson? I looked up. Yes? She smiled. I heard about what happened on your last flight with us. The incident with Jennifer. I just wanted to say thank you. For what? For standing your ground, for knowing your rights, for making sure she was held accountable. Michelle glanced around, then lowered her voice. Jennifer had been pulling stunts like that for months. Small things. Upgrading friends without approval. Giving free drinks to people she wanted to impress. We all knew, but no one could prove it. Management wouldn't act without concrete evidence. I'm sorry you had to work with someone like that. Don't be. You did what we couldn't. You got her caught red-handed. Michelle straightened. Anyway, your drinks are on me today. And if you need anything at all, just ask. Thank you, Michelle. She walked away. The businessman in 2C, different guy this time, leaned over. What was that about? Long story, I said. He laughed. Fair enough. The plane took off on time. No drama, no incidents. No flight attendants trying to steal my seat. Just a normal flight, the way it should be. A year after the incident, I gave a lecture at Seattle University School of Law. Consumer rights in the aviation industry. 73 law students attended. I told them the story of Flight 2847, explained the regulations Jennifer had violated, walked them through exactly how I'd known she was lying, taught them what questions to ask when an airline tries to deny boarding, showed them the compensation requirements airlines never advertise. After the lecture, a student approached me. Professor Patterson, can I ask you something? I'm not a professor, but sure. When you realized what Jennifer was doing, when you knew she was trying to scam you, did you think about just taking the vouchers and leaving? Would have been easier than fighting. I thought about it. Honestly, no. Because it wasn't about easy or hard. It was about right and wrong. She was trying to steal something I'd paid for, to give it to someone who hadn't. That's theft. And if I'd let her get away with it, she would have done it to someone else. Someone who didn't know their rights. Someone who wouldn't have pushed back. So you did it for other people? I did it because it was the right thing to do. The fact that it protected other people was a bonus. The student nodded. That's a good answer. It's the only answer. 2 years after Flight 2847, I'm still flying United, still booking seat 2A when it's available, still first class when I can get it. I've had dozens of flights since then. Never had another incident. Never had another flight attendant try to remove me from my seat. Most crews are professional, courteous. They do their jobs well. But every time I board, I remember Jennifer. Remember her fake smile when she told me to gather my belongings. Remember her threat to call security. Remember the look on her face when Sandra told her to deplane. And I remember that moment, that perfect moment, when Sandra pulled up the passenger manifest and realized exactly what Jennifer had tried to do. When fraud met consequences. When entitlement met accountability. When someone who thought they could steal from a passenger because he looked like an easy target learned that the man in seat 2A was an aviation attorney who knew every regulation she was violating. Jennifer wanted to upgrade her boyfriend. Cost her everything. Her job, her career, her future in the industry. All for one free first-class seat. All because she assumed I wouldn't fight back. All because she thought she could look a confirmed passenger in the eye and lie about overbooking without consequences. She was wrong. The flight attendant who told me I needed to give up my seat learned that when you try to scam a passenger out of their confirmed first-class ticket, you better make damn sure they don't know 14 CFR Part 250 by heart, don't have 15 years of litigation experience, and don't understand exactly which questions will expose your fraud in front of a supervisor, a cabin full of witnesses, and a station manager who's required by federal law to report your violations to the FAA. That was her last flight with United. And her last flight with any airline. Some lessons cost everything.